everybody. Welcome to the next episode of the Flipping Principal podcast. We are joined today by Mr. Stevenson, who is our custodian here at Beartooth Elementary School. And we're going to talk about every person in the schoolhouse as an educator. And we're going to talk to Jay about what he does here at school every day to help us educate our students. So, Mr. Stevenson, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
I'm glad to be here.
I appreciate you, sir. So I want to start off by talking a little bit about your career before you ended up being in education, because you've had quite the experience out in the real world. Tell us a little bit about that. I know you started off in the military. Run me through that a little bit.
So I spent 21 years and 9 months in the military. The first part of that was the active Army, and then I went into the National Guard. During that time, I've worked in about 6 to 8 different jobs during the military time. I started in the communication field, and pardon me a minute.
That's what happens when you're live.
I'll get back to that. Anyway, the 13 years of that time was spent in the Chemical Corps, and in the Chemical Corps, we basically taught soldiers how to protect themselves against the chemical warfare. We also decontaminated their vehicles, all that sort of stuff. We also, like the pandemic that's been going on, that's the sort of thing that we looked at and figured out, how long it would take for it to encompass an entire city. So everything that we've been dealing with lately, I've got lots of experience and knowledge behind me on that.
So 20 years in the military.
Yeah. So I was a mechanic, worked for the general of the 9th Infantry Division during the Desert Storm. And we did all the awards for every soldier that went from a 5-state region of Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming. There was somewhere in the range of about 100,000 awards that we did after Desert Storm on that. So, and then after the military thing, I went into driving truck. Owned my own trucking company for about 5 years, and got to travel all over the United States. Got to experience people in different parts of the country, and you got to see, and being in Montana, when you get out and you get down to like Louisiana and you see how they live down there, it's great to interact with people all over the world. So during my time in the military, I served in Germany for 2 years, got to travel most of Europe. It's beautiful. I love being in and around people in different atmospheres, and the way no matter where you go in the world, there's a way that they live differently than we do here in Montana, and it's neat to get that experience, which I think really helps me being in a school system, because now I've had that experience and I can interact with no matter who we have in the school.
Yeah. So you drove truck, and then so after you got done driving truck, was that when you came into the school district to work as our custodian?
I actually, after I had my trucking company, I went to work dispatching for about a year or a little over, and then they were having some layoffs, and I got laid off and reverted back to, actually cooked in a restaurant for a year and started subbing with the school district, and that's how I got into back into the school system. And the experience of cooking came from when I was in high school. Me and my mother had ran a restaurant, and I had to cook and do the books and everything then. And by the time I graduated high school, I had already owned 3 businesses of my own. So,
wow. By the time you graduated high school, you owned 3 businesses?
Yep. At the age of 16, I applied for and received a state license to have a concession stand on a state park. That was my first business. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
And at 16 years of age, the IRS came and audited my books while I was there. So I went into a full bore, and that was a huge education for me.
Yeah.
That was at 16. And then, of course, me and my mother owned and ran the restaurant, little cafe. And then because we had the cafe, I ended up taking our trash to landfill, which ended up, by the time 4 years after that, I was hauling everybody's trash in that little community that I grew up in. So,
wow. All right. So you finished the trucking thing, did the dispatching, and then there were layoffs that were happening, and so you were subbing in the district, still doing some, went back to cooking in some restaurants, and then landed
Yep.
a gig here at Billings Public Schools. So
Yep. That's correct.
how long now have you been in Billings Public Schools?
This is my 11th year.
11th year. Okay.
Yep.
So what is it that, because anytime you spend a length of time, like whether that's the military or whether it's doing your trucking or whatever, anytime you spend a length of time, there's a reason why you stay. What makes you stay with Billings Public Schools? What makes you like this?
I think it's the impact that we have on the kids. That's the thing that gets me. When I first got started with the district, especially as a custodian, you don't realize coming in how much of an impact you have on the kids just being a custodian. But then after I was there like a couple of years, and I'd go to like Wendy's or some of these places where these kids that had made it into high school, and we had people behind the counter that was like, "Oh, are you still at Beartooth?" And they were sharing the impact that I had with them, and they were telling me how their grades had come up, and that's when I started to really see that everybody in the school has an impact on these kids.
Everybody. I was just going to say, so many times people, I think the mindset is almost to where, well, the custodians just keep the building clean, or, oh, well, those people just do this. And they use the word just, or they kind of are dismissive about it. And that's the thing that I really want to try to focus is on the impact that you have every single day when you walk in. So even just starting the day, like when kids come in, when they come in and they see a school that looks clean, floors are, whether they're shiny floors, whether they're just cleaned up, they're vacuumed, things are in order, that already sets the mindset of a kid about this is a place to be respected. This is a place where I can come in and I can feel safe. I can feel comfortable here. People care about the way this place looks. And that transcends then into their learning too, I think. So what are some things that you have done throughout your career to connect with kids?
So as you well know, there's days that I take, if you're not there, I step up and greet the kids first thing in the morning as they come in the door.
Isn't that the best place to be? I love that.
It is. I love that. You actually get to shake every kid's hand as they come in the door, high five them, and you get to say hello to each and every one of them. The other thing is,
have you ever gotten a hug? Have kids hugged you?
Oh, yes, on a daily basis. It's like, as you know, I'm just coming back from having back surgery, and I remember stopping in the midst of all that, and right when everybody was at lunch, and I had like tons of kids come up and give me a hug, and that kind of reminds you too that you are missed there when you're not there, but I've done other things like this. As this year started, before I went in for back surgery, I was in the early mornings before the bell actually rang. I was going in and teaching some of the kids some map reading skills that I'd learned in the military, and interacting with them that way. But it's not just that. You interact with these kids just when you see them in the hallways, and they have a little bit of a respect for you because you treat everybody the same, and you always say hello to everybody when you see them in the hallways, and give them a high five or hand or whatever.
Even just a smile, right? Even just a smile. Exactly. You look at somebody and smile, and it can change their day.
It does. Yeah. I was just talking with somebody the other day, and as soon as church got over, and we were talking about how just a big smile and good morning, how you doing, can impact a person's day.
Yeah, it's powerful. And I think sometimes we forget that we have this awesome power every day in this building with kids at every moment and every turn, every corner where you come around and there's a kid running down the hall and you're like, oh, hey, how you doing? So, and you don't have to stop by saying, whoa, you need to walk. You can stop by just asking the question, how are you today? How are you doing?
Yep.
I can tell you're really excited to get down and fill that water bottle. Make sure you're walking on the way. Just a totally different way to handle that, right? That the kid feels respected. They feel like you love them. So I got to go back because you were talking about that you went in and you did some map skills with kids before school. How many kids were coming in to do that with you every day?
On an average, we had kids that were coming in extra early in order to do this. Yeah. And we had probably 11 to 15 kids that were in there every morning. They'd come in and they'd be there early enough that they'd get their breakfast early and be there by 8 o'clock in the morning. And some of them would kind of come in a little later, but it was mainly, 10 to 15 kids, depending on the day.
That's incredible. And so you had a chance to work with those kiddos. Now, I know you've also done some things with, because every kid needs to have a sense of belonging in a school, right? They've got to feel like they're valued and they give back in some way. So what are some ways that you've worked with kids over the years to help kids give back to the school?
A lot of different ways. There was actually before you became the principal there, and we were when Cheryl McCall was there. She always had the student council kids, and there was a group that worked with me, and they would help us with even outdoors in the wintertime with moving a little bit of snow, or just helping us pick up or rake the gravel off the playground and stuff. It makes those kids feel like they're part of this, and they're helping keep this up, and that's important to the kids. And then after you got there, having the kids help me, like even if it's just as simple as moving a little bit of like chairs or a light table or something, lightweight table or something. I remember one of the things that always sticks to my mind that I bring up to everybody is we had a program going one morning, and we had breakfast in the music room that we often do when everything's set up, and we've got to take those tables down, and kids were like jumping up, hey, can I help you carry those down and put those away, because I know you're busy, and that makes them feel like they're needed and wanted, but it also is a big help for us.
Yeah, it is. And it makes you feel like you're valued too, right?
Yes, it does.
It's their way to give back. And I think that's so powerful when we can not just have kids, I don't know, it's just an innate sense for them, that they want to help. They want to show that you can trust them and that they're there to help. I think every kid wants to help.
Yes.
Who they are. That's who we are as people. We're social beings. We want to be there for others. It's so great to see you be able to walk down the hallway and uplift kids, and then them turn around and do the same thing back.
Yes, that's powerful. I'm reminded on a regular basis, like we talked a little bit ago about how much a smile can impact a person's life, a kid's life. But people that we don't realize that if we come in and we're grumpy and stuff, that translates to those kids too. So we need to be, in a cheerful, happy mood when they come in, because if we don't, and we come in and we're like, it's a Monday and it's kind of, as we're dragging on, the kids pick that up, and then they're kind of like that way. So if we come in and we have smiles on our face every morning, then the kids have that gives them that motivation. Hey, it's going to be a good day, when we're here, and that I think is a huge impact that we make, and we often forget about that a little bit, but that's one thing I've always tried to do. So,
and every one of us has that impact with kids every day, regardless of your role in a school, regardless of what you do, regardless of where you're at. Kids are watching, right? They're seeing everything that we do, and like you said, it's almost just that energy translates from one person to the next and transfers. Honestly, it's literally just like energy works in nature. It's never lost or destroyed. It's just a transfer of energy, right? It transfers from one thing to the next. It's never gone.
No, it's not. But and you can see it too. If the kids come in and they're, you're kind of grumpy, or whoever's there meeting them kind of grumpy, then you're going to have more problems that day. Where if you have the kids cut, everybody's happy that day, I think you don't have as many issues during the day. You probably see that a little more than I do, but that's what I've noticed.
Right. And, Jay, I don't know. Gosh, I feel like this is on such a positive tone right now. I want to end it right here. But I got to start off by saying thank you for everything that you do for our school. Thanks for your energy every day. And thank you for not just putting your head down and going about your job, because that's easy to do. And there are days when I'm sure, man, I know I feel like that sometimes when I walk in, that I would much rather just put my head down and just go through the day. Like, let me just do the stuff in my office. Let me focus on the things I got to do. But there are so many more important things outside of that with every kid, like we said, that's watching, that's feeding off of you, that's seeing you as the model, that's seeing you as that grown up of how do I handle things? Even when things get tough, how do I talk to people? How do I respond? How do I show people I still care? How do I enlist their support versus just pushing away? All those things that you've already talked about, that you do every single day as our custodian here, as an educator in the building. You are still educating kids, not only through your programs that you're doing, but then also through just the way you handle yourself and your job every day. Thank you for being you.
You're welcome. It's always an honor to and like we said, we get it back threefold, when the kids, you can tell when they come up and they give you hugs and we know that we're making an impact.
Yeah. And you get a chance to greet them at the door. That's the best.
Yes, that's awesome. I love those days. That even makes my day when I get to greet them at the door. I mean, that just changes my whole day, when you're there and you're greeting the kids in the morning.
Yeah. And that's how I am every day. If I'm having a rough day, the first place I go is I walk down to a classroom and find kids because they fuel me. And that's why we're all here, right? We're all in it for kids, all in. I love it. All right. What's that?
I said exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hey, Mr. Stevenson, thank you so much for joining me on this podcast. I sure appreciate your time, sir. And for everybody else, thank you for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed. We'll talk to y'all later.